infrastructure.
A long campaign is now.
This is the car market in Mogadishu.
NATO's military success against
many Western nations.
This is on assignment.
Welcome everybody, I'm Alex Villarreal here with Imran Siddiqui, and we have got a jam-packed show for you this week.
First up, the new Ukraine with the new president at the helm is corruption fading into the past.
In West Africa, the Ebola epidemic is worrying officials. We'll hear from VOA's Africa Health reporter.
Then, milking robots. Yes, you heard it right. They're changing the way some dairy farmers operate.
And he's only 13, but this trumpet prodigy is already getting gigs with jazz veterans.
Strike Up the Band on assignment is on the air.
Corruption is a cancer, the words of Ukraine's new president Petro Poroshenko during his inaugural address.
Mr. Poroshenko has vowed to eliminate the backdoor deals plaguing the nation since his post-Soviet days, but can he really change Ukraine?
For answers, VOA's ANITA Powell looked into the lifestyle of Ukraine's ousted former leader Viktor Yanukovych, and she tells On Assignment's Rebecca Ward what it's like talking to Ukrainians about their country.
It's really interesting. This is a new experience for me, especially since I'm reporting in a country with such a big burden of history. You ask somebody a question about how they feel, and they will take you back in history 800 years. But the people of Ukraine are really warm and generous and funny and very entertaining.
And you've had quite a visit because you've been to the presidential palace, which I understand is extraordinary.
Yeah, to clarify, it's the ex-presidential palace. It's not an
Correct.
Official residence. It's in a style that we call here oligarchsky. A lot of gilt, a lot of mirrored surfaces, a lot of marble, not a lot of, some people would say, taste. It's a massive, massive structure. It's built on a nature reserve, and it's just all chandeliers, ceilings, gilt, crystal, flat screen TVs, and more flat screen TVs, and more flat screen TVs. There's a flat screen TV above every single bathtub. But I think it's emblematic of corruption, it's emblematic of evil, it's emblematic of waste and excess. And the Ukrainian people certainly feel that Mr. Yanukovych embodied that.
It was tales of Viktor Yanukovych's excessive lifestyle at his Mezhygiria estate, furnished at the expense of his people, that brought thousands of protesters to Kiev's Central Square in February to demand his ouster. Since he's fled to Russia, his home has become an unlikely tourist magnet. But although Mr. Yanukovych's fabled golden toilet never existed, corruption is a very real problem in Ukraine. Fighting corruption is not easy, says anti-corruption crusader Alexander KOSTRENKO. He questions President Petro Poroshenko's vow to fight corruption from within.
Authorities shouldn't establish anti-corruption committees inside their ministries. How can state authorities organize their own state officials to fight against themselves? It's ridiculous.
But Kiev Region Deputy Governor Dmytro Krystyuk says government has a big role to play.
The authorities' credibility now is extremely low. To regain people's trust, we need to make the access to the officials transparent and open.
Now, you also profiled the mayor of Kiev, who kind of a colorful figure who was a boxer. So tell me about your experience talking with him.
Vitaly Klitschko actually knows how to fight. People do take him seriously. It's hard not to when the guy's 6'7". Yeah, I think we took a picture together, and his fist was approximately the size of my head. He's not really the kind of guy who you take lightly. But more importantly, he's a really successful businessman. People really not only love Vitaly Klitschko, they clearly love him, but they respect him.
What about the media taking Klitschko seriously?
You know, I think this is the only note of cynicism that I've expressed. I think that the media here is so enamored of him, and they do definitely take him seriously because he makes some very good points.
People want clear, understandable rules. Rules of law, equal opportunity for business, the good chance for every Kiev citizen, the citizen of capital of Ukraine, for the future.
But nobody's really asked him about his own business connections. For example, how did he manage to open a boutique hotel in Kiev in 2012, when to hear this new administration tell it you couldn't get anything done during the Yanukovych era without greasing palms and knowing people. I think people want to believe, but he just has this iconic status in Ukraine. I mean, he and his brother have held every single heavyweight title. That's not nothing. And I think people do take him really seriously.
Now, the president and the mayor both are working on corruption, but they probably need to work on the economy as well. So have they laid out any plans for how to get the economy back on track?
Well, the important element in the economic question is Ukraine's association with the European Union. That is going to open up a lot of economic opportunities for Ukraine and also introduce a lot of regulations. For, as you know, the EU regulates everything from the content of peanut oil and potato chips to the type of coloring that you can use in candy. So, I mean, that's going to be an adjustment for Ukraine, but I think people largely do it as a benefit.
All right, VOA's Anita Powell there, bringing us that inside look at Ukraine.
It's time for a break now. On the other side, the latest outbreak of the deadly Ebola virus in West Africa. You're watching On Assignment.
The outbreak in West Africa is unprecedented in the history of Ebola outbreaks because it involves 3 countries at least, capital cities, multiple sources, and that will make it far more difficult to control.
It's been a growing problem with officials in Liberia, Guinea and Sierra Leone scrambling to contain the latest outbreak of the Ebola virus. Over 500 people have died in this outbreak, with porous borders, misinformation and stigma contributing to the spread of the disease. And joining me right now is VOA reporter Leonard Madu, who's also hosting Africa Health Chat. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
The first time we heard about this was in 1976. What makes this one so different?
This time around, what makes it different is, first of all, the way it has spread, the location, not just in one country, but quickly it spread in 3 countries. We saw it, started in Guinea, spread to Liberia and Sierra Leone very, very quickly. And also, the numbers of people, the number of people that are being infected and people that are dying. As of today, we have over 700 people that are being infected with over 500 deaths, which is unprecedented. In the past, when we've seen high numbers, was in 1976, when it was first discovered. Of course, at that time, no one knew what it was, so the disease had the time to spread and make more victims. So back then, there were over 300 people that were infected and a little close to 300 deaths. And in 2000, the second biggest outbreak was in 2000 in Uganda, where you had more than 400 people that were infected and a little over 200 deaths. But this time around, it's much, much more.
And people are also concerned about the stigma that the disease carries, and people, because of that, are not coming out.
Definitely. It's not just stigma. As the Deputy Health Minister of Liberia said, Mrs. Dawn Bernice, she said that one of the challenges is the fact that there is denial, there is fear, and there is panic. So we can add to that stigma, and we can also add to that mistrust. Mistrust, why? Because some people believe, some locals believe that this is a Western-made disease. This disease was brought in by the Westerners. And also, when we talk about stigma, sometimes they think even if they recover from the disease, people will not approach them anymore, or people think that this is due to a bad omen or a juju, local belief. And so when you have denial, they don't think that it is Ebola, they don't know Ebola. You have fear because there is no treatment, because there is no vaccination, and many other reasons, so people panic.
And quickly, in 20 seconds, you can tell us that another fear is that it might spread into mass population, like in the rural areas.
Absolutely. Usually this outbreak, Ebola outbreak, happened in rural area. This time it went quickly to the cities. And when it goes to the cities, you see densely populated areas where people move around, and also the borders are porous in West Africa. So that's why the disease has spread quickly in 3 countries, and there is really fear that it will spread further in other countries as well.
All right, we keep an eye on that. Thank you so much for joining us.
You bet.
Moving on, we're taking another break, but when we come back, we look at some new technology taking over the dairy farm. You're watching On Assignment. And for our next segment, we're heading to the farm, to a place not far from here, where the future of dairy has arrived.
It has, and this is a future in robot form, a robot that actually milks cows.
Wow.
Yeah, it's video that you don't want to miss. VOA's Steve Barragona takes us to this local farm, and he tells me all about what he saw.
It's a robot and it milks a cow. That's the story. Basically, the cow walks in, the cow comes in whenever it wants.
The robot does all the work. It finds each teat with a laser, cleans it, and attaches a milking tube. It checks the milk for contamination and automatically spits out the rejects. When the flow of milk slows down, the machine knows to stop and send the cow on its way.
How does this affect efficiency at the farm too? Because I saw, I mean, you can be milking the entire cow's udder basically at one time.
The system is not fundamentally different from the way that cows are being milked at commercial dairies. Like, they usually just have these kind of vacuum systems where they'll come in and just stick these things on all four udders or all four teats at the same time, and then just milk it all at once. But one of the things that happens is that those things don't stop automatically.
Now, how widespread is this? It seems to me like it's a complicated system. I mean, it's pretty high level technology. So where have we seen these robots in operation?
They're starting to catch on here in the US. I've seen reports of them in Iowa, in Wisconsin, in California, and the big dairy states. New York State has a number of these things. They're not everywhere yet because they're expensive, but they're catching on in the big dairy producers. Australia has them, New Zealand has them, they're Europe. The Europeans actually invented the systems. There are two commercially available systems, and they're both European.
Let's talk about John Fendrick, the farmer that you met with. What's his story? How did he get into farming?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. He's not really a farmer. He's an IT guy. His day job is he's an IT consultant with the National Institutes of Health, and he said he's kind of a handy guy. He likes to fix stuff up, and he bought this old farmhouse about like 19 or 20 years ago. Fixed up the farmhouse, and he's got 10 hectares of land. It's like, well, we've got all this land, better get some animals. So he started raising sheep. And he went to the feed store one day, and a woman working there was like, oh, you like your sheep, you should get a cow. Talked him into raising a cow, loved it. His kids absolutely went crazy for this. They were showing the cow at agricultural fairs.
In watching, I wanted to know, how have the cows responded to this?
The cows seem to love it. I mean, who knows what goes on in the mind of a cow, right? But
yeah.
When you see them in the stall, they're totally cool with it. I mean, they get a little food. I mean, the food is the real incentive for them to come in and get milked. And he said the first couple of times they have to learn that the food is there. But once they know that the food is there, they're like, right on, whatever you want to do, I'm here for you.
What happens if a cow doesn't go in to get milked?
With my phone, I can actually do pretty much everything I normally do up at the dairy.
He can find out when each cow milked last and how much she produced. And it will tell him when one has not been in for a while.
We need to go find her and figure out why she hasn't come in yet.
Is this going to then take away jobs? I mean, all these automated processes we're seeing come about, is this going to take away jobs from people?
The robots are coming for us.
Yeah.
You know, this is, I mean, the idea is that this frees you up to do something else. But yeah, I mean, sure, now there are, once you've got the robot, then yeah, you don't need people to milk these things, so the people have to go find something else to do. It's an issue.
What does this say about the future of farming?
Oh, well, I think there's a lot of this kind of mechanization that we're going to see more of. I mean, you see, they're already talking about drones that will keep an eye on your crops. I mean, if you have a big field of corn or something, you can have a drone flying over and keeping an eye on, looking out for pest infestations or disease outbreaks or something. And they can apply, whatever needs to be applied, if there's pesticides or whatever that need to be done, or just tell the farmer, hey, you better do something out in the field because there's something going on out there. Yeah, we're probably going to see a lot more of this.
Yeah. And Imran, these robots that Steve just showed us, the milking robots, they're not the only ones that farmers are coming up with these days. We've got this wine bot that a French inventor created, and that's designed to help prune grapevines. A herder bot.
Wow.
to keep cows in line, and even a tiny flying bee bot to pollinate crops.
That's amazing, almost as amazing as the subject of our next segment, which is, of course, when he was just 5 years old, trumpet prodigy Geoff Gallante was already playing with award-winning American musicians and appearing on national television.
Today, at 13 years old, he continues to mesmerize audiences with his talent. VOA's Julie Tabo got the chance to meet Geoff, and she sits down with me to share her experience.
At this historic music venue in a quaint little town in Maryland, a group of seasoned professional musicians has gathered to play jazz. But the big sound of the trumpet comes from the youngest person on stage. The star of the show, 13-year-old Geoff Gallante.
Geoff is an amazing little boy who's not so little when it comes to talent and personality. At 13, the moment we started interviewing him was obvious both to myself and my cameraman just how articulate and smart this young man is.
Music can be your passion, it can be your work, it can be your living, it can be what you do, and it's fun.
He does believe that this is his life's calling and that he will be doing this for the rest of his life. And he urges everyone, young and old, to pursue their passion, to do this as a living. And he feels that if you really do what you love, that can translate into a career, that you don't necessarily have to have hobbies to supplement your life.
Hobbies are a way to do something that you really love. And music is what I really love. So there's no need for hobbies.
How did you find out about Geoff, and what made you want to share his story?
Well, interestingly enough, I was doing a story about this photographer called Mary F. Calvert. I was on her website and I was looking through her portfolio, and I see these series of amazing photographs that she'd taken when Geoff was about 8. And I just happened to look at a little bio behind it and found out he lived in the area. And I thought, I have to do a story about this boy.
Geoff started music lessons, and after just 1 year, was performing in all kinds of venues. He has played for trumpet king Maynard Ferguson and jammed with such music greats as Grammy-winning Phil Driscoll and jazz legend Wynton Marsalis.
I was on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, so.
What was that like?
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember. But I can guess that it was pretty amazing.
What part of your body makes music?
What part of your body makes music? I don't know.
Your nose, because you pick it and you blow it.
Seeing him on stage playing with all of these people who have decades more experience than he has, but he seems so comfortable up there. How have other musicians responded to him?
Very well. I was surprised. I interviewed at least 3 of the musicians from that night alone, and they all were unanimous in their feeling that he is not only a huge talent, but so personable, so funny, making people feel at ease.
I think he's got a huge future in music from the way he plays, and to just have that kind of talent and maturity in his playing and sense of melody and his improvising, it's pretty remarkable. He knows what to do, and he's obviously, I think, very confident. He's listening and he's paying attention, and that's high praise for someone of his age, because those are the elements of music that usually develop later on.
It's such a cliche expression, but he really does seem to fit the bill of an old soul.
That's a very good way of describing him. He really is. He just believes you have to love what you do. In fact, he has a t-shirt that says, "Love what you do and do what you love." And he's pretty much living by that premise.
Why do people enjoy anything that they do? Whatever their passion is. It's hard to describe. It's just what they're meant to do as a person.
Wow, and that really is such great advice for all of us, isn't it? You know, talking to Julie about all of Geoff's accomplishments, I have to say that it seems like one of his biggest achievements is really his attitude, and this idea that he talks about of following your dreams and doing what you're meant to do. It takes so much courage and motivation to do that, and I think we all could benefit from taking that to heart.
Absolutely. Amazing kid, inspiring story. We can all learn from that. And now, get ready to be inspired again by our next story. They came from Kenya to Washington with a simple message that it's possible to turn a problem into something positive. Mackenzie Buckwalter has more on a group that is cleaning up their country's coastline and turning trash into works of art.
Francis MUTUA has been a wood craftsman for years, but today he's working with a much softer material. Plastic flip-flops. At the Smithsonian Folklife Festival, he demonstrates how he cuts and glues the raw materials and recycles them into something new.
Each one of us doing a multiple of two to three kinds of carvings. You may carve a giraffe, a rhino, and also a wattle.
As this YouTube video shows, tens of thousands of plastic sandals are collected each year by the nonprofit environmental group called Ocean Soul. The discarded flip-flops wash up on Kenya's beaches and are tossed out in its poor neighborhoods.
Rubbish washes up on...
In the slums, people use a lot of these sandals when they are finished. You know, they discard them. There are people there who collect and they bring to the company.
At the workshop in Nairobi, the sandals are turned into eye-catching art by MUTUA and 50 other artisans. Ocean Soul was founded in 1997 by Kenyan conservationist Julie Church. She sees the project as a way to promote change in how people live.
Being able to then impact people through training, education, awareness on a much greater level. Right now we're at the end of the food chain. We're just dealing with the cleanup. And if we can get more people involved in cleaning up their act, I think we can do something.
Workers collect the washed up flip-flops and bring them to Ocean Soul's headquarters to be cleaned and sorted. Then they are glued together, sanded, and given new life. As he displays his work at the Folklife Festival, MUTUA says Ocean Soul has changed his life in ways he did not expect.
The difference meant by this is we are conserving the environment. The trees we are to use to make these are to live longer. Also, the flip-flops are not carried to the rivers when the rains come.
That message is not lost on festival visitors who can't resist touching the colorful animals.
So maybe we should keep your old flip-flops and try to make this.
Ocean Soul's bright animal creations can now be seen in homes, parks, zoos, and aquariums across the United States, Europe, and Japan. For VOA News, Mackenzie Buckwalter.
And with that, we are just about out of time, but before we go, we want to send a shout out to people watching us on one of our newest affiliates in Sri Lanka.
Yes, we are so happy to say hello to folks watching us on MTV channel in Colombo. Thank you so much for joining us, guys.
And don't forget, you can watch all of our episodes anytime at voanews.com and YouTube.
Well, we gotta go. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye from Washington.